So Mayavadis, they don't want to go further beyond Brahman. They don't want to accept or even understand, what to speak of accepting. They don't want to understand the Paramatma feature or the Bhagwan feature of the absolute truth, and they just want to restrict themselves only to the impersonal feature of the Supreme Being. Because of their frailty, as Swami Srila Prabhupada is saying, because human beings have 4 defects. So out of their cheating propensity, because they cannot accept, because of their enviousness to the Supreme Being, because they envy the very existence of the Lord, that somebody can be superior. So there are individuals who don't want to accept this fact that another individual is always superior to me. He is the supreme, he is Lord, he is my master. So those who do not want to accept this concept, and they uses their cheating propensity, and they give commentation. They comment on Bhagavad Gita in a very misleading way. Swami Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport. They comment on Bhagavad Gita in a very misleading way. Because of their own frailties, and Swami Srila Prabhupada is writing wonderful statement. This statement is a very wonderful statement. A common man with all 4 defects of human frailty is unable to teach that which is worth hearing, is unable to teach that which is worth hearing. Worth hearing. Only a liberated soul, only a person situated in absolute truth can speak something which is worth hearing. Otherwise, everything what we speak, all mundane knowledge, all mundane philosophies, everything is vanquished or is finished at the time of death, and as such do not have eternal value. That's why Swami Srila Prabhupada is writing, is unable to teach that which is worth hearing. So Gita is above such literature. No mundane book compares with the Bhagavad Gita. When one accepts Krishna as an ordinary man, the Gita loses all importance. The Mayavadi argues that the plurality mentioned in this verse is conventional, and that it refers to the body. But previous to this verse, such a bodily conception is already condemned. Lord Shri Krishna already said, Asocyananvasicha sochastam pragyavadam shabhashase gatasuna gatasumscha nan sochanti pandita. So if Lord has already condemned, then why he will again start speaking? So after condemning the bodily conception of living entities, how was it possible for Krishna to place a conventional proposition on the body again? If Lord Shri Krishna has already condemned it, then after condemning, how it is possible for Lord Krishna to place such conventional proposition on the body again? Therefore, individuality is maintained on spiritual grounds and is thus confirmed by great acharyas. Therefore, individuality is maintained on spiritual grounds and is thus confirmed by great acharyas like Ramanujacharya and others. It is clearly mentioned in many places in the Gita that the spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. So in the further we will see in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna will explain this point very nicely, that only those who are bhaktosi me sakha cha iti rahasyam hi etad uttamam. Bhaktosi, O Arjuna, because you are my devotee, bhaktosi me sakha cha iti, because you are not envious of me. Very, very important point. Such it will be explained in many ways, and it is accepted. Swami Srila Prabhupada is writing, it is accepted by great acharyas like Sri Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, all the great acharyas. They have accepted individuality on spiritual grounds, that after getting liberated also one's individuality will be maintained, and it can be, this concept can only be understood by devotees. It is clearly mentioned in many places in the Gita that spiritual individuality is understood only by those who are devotees of the Lord. Those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. They may read, but those who are envious, those who keep envy in their heart, that's why the beginning, very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Shishyasteham Shadimam Tam Prapannam. Unless one reads Bhagavad Gita in the mood of surrender to the Supreme Lord, to the Supreme Spiritual Master, to the Supreme Being, in the mood of surrender, as a disciple, as a student, as a surrendered disciple, with submissiveness, it is not possible. Swami Srila Prabhupada is writing, those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. They cannot actually understand the rahasyam. Rahasyam etad uttamam. Lord Sri Krishna says to Arjuna, Bhaktosi me sakha chayiti rahasyam. So they cannot understand. Even they will read Gita superficially. One may read Gita superficially, Bhagavad Gita superficially, but if one want to really touch the transcendental science, or one who if one really want to understand, then he should be non-envious. He should be submissive to the Supreme Lord. He should be surrendered as Arjunji surrendered. So those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. The non-devotees' approach to the teachings of Gita, Swami Srila Prabhupada gave one very beautiful analogy or example. Bees licking on the bottle of honey. The non-devotees' approach to the teachings of the Gita is something like bees licking on the bottle of the honey. So if one closes, if there is a honey in a bottle, and if it is closed by lid, and if the bees, they lick only on the outside because they can smell that some sugar is there inside, honey is there in the bottle, but they lick, if they only lick the bottle, they will not be able to taste the honey. So one cannot have a taste of the honey unless one opens the bottle. Similarly, the mysticism of the Bhagavad Gita, Swami Srila Prabhupada writes, the mysticism of the Bhagavad Gita can only be understood by the devotees. No one else can taste it, as it is stated in the 4th chapter of the book. Nor can the Gita be touched by a person who envy the very existence of the Lord. Therefore, the Mayavadi explanation of the Gita is the most misleading presentation of the whole truth. So the Mayavadis, those who don't want to understand the personal feature of the Supreme Lord, those who don't want to go beyond the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord Brahman, and they don't want to understand. Truth exists, but if I close my eyes, Swami Srila Prabhupada always gives the example, the owl philosophy. The owl says that there is no sun. Why? Because in the morning, the owl sleeps whole day, and he is very active in the night, in the dark. And because he never sees the sun, so he claims, the owl gives the owl's philosophy. The owl, he gives the philosophy that there is no sun, because he has not seen the sun. So sun is there. It is present throughout the day, but in the daytime the owl closes its eyes. And in the night owl is active, and in the night he only sees the moon and the stars. And the owl doesn't see the sun, and he gives his philosophy, the owl's philosophy. Swami Srila Prabhupada says Mayavada philosophy as the owl's philosophy, because they don't want to see the sun. So Mayavadi, they don't want to go beyond the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Brahman feature of the Supreme Lord. They don't want to understand the Lord is alive. Swami Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport. Very first verse, the Lord is alive. Lord is always in the heart, in the region of the heart as Paramatma feature, as an individual being guiding every living entity. Upadrishta, he is seer, he has senses, eyes, he is seer and he is sanctioner. So they don't want to understand, the Mayavadi don't want to understand the Paramatma feature and the Bhagwan feature of the Supreme Lord, and Lord Sri Krishna is the last, is the personality of Godhead among all the features of the God, among all the forms, transcendental eternal forms, Sachidanand forms, Rama, Narayana, Vishnu, he is the he is the supermost Godhead. Swami Srila Prabhupada says, form, Krishna is the original supreme being, supreme Lord. So if the Mayavadi, they do not want to understand the personal feature or personal aspect of the absolute truth, and they envy the very existence of the Supreme Lord, or they are envious of Lord Krishna. So those people who are envious, they cannot understand the mysticism. Swami Srila Prabhupada writes, they cannot understand the mysticism of Bhagavad Gita. It is very difficult for them to understand, because Bhagavad Gita is the science, transcendental science of the living being and its relationship with the Supreme Lord in conditioned state and in the liberated state. As one is active in the conditioned state, he can be active in the liberated state always also. And the Lord is maintainer in both the states, in conditioned and in the liberated state. But Mayavadis, they cannot understand. Therefore, Mayavadi's explanation of Gita is most misleading presentation of the whole truth. Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentations made by the Mayavadis and warns that one who takes to such an understanding of the Mayavadi philosophy loses all power to understand the real mystery of the Gita. So that's why Lord Chaitanya has actually warned, Mayavadi bhashya sunle haile sarvanash. Lord Chaitanya is saying, if one hears Mayavadi's interpretation, the way they interpret or their commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, then one loses all power, because the mind is so much puzzled by their misleading presentations, by their misleading interpretations and commentaries, that one loses all power to understand the real mystery of Gita. If individuality refers to the empirical universe, then there is no need of teaching by the Lord. If individuality refers only to this material world, to this empirical world, empirical universe, then why the Supreme Lord is teaching about individuality? Because the Supreme Lord do not belong to. Of course, this world is also, everything belongs to Him, but He do not belong to. He always exists in His spiritual abode. He always like to be, of course, for यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानम् अधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम्. He comes to re-establish the principles of religion. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkitam, and paritranaya sadhunam, for protecting the sadhus, for protecting truthful souls, genuine souls. He speaks in future also, because he comes and he complete his work, and for that reason Lord has spoken Bhagavad Gita. then there is no need of teaching by the Lord. The plurality of the individual soul and of the Lord is an eternal fact, and it is confirmed by the Vedas as above mentioned. Swami Srila Prabhupada ends with this: the plurality, each one of us, you, Lord Shri Krishna says, Natva eva aham, you, me, Natva neme janadipaha, all these kings. So plurality is an eternal fact. Plurality, individuality is an eternal fact. The living being is eternal, and living being is eternally, its individuality is maintained always. Every living being is an eternal individual. Every living being is an eternal individual, and as such, he never loses his personality. Jatu Nasham. One never loses his individuality. Always remain as an. And even in the Brahman, of course, Brahma Jyoti is the supreme, is the effulgent, is subordinate to the Supreme Lord, and is coming from that, the energy, the light is coming, Brahman. And if one merges even in the Brahman, then also he remains there, because the living entity, as it will be explained, as it is mentioned in the other Upanishad and Vedic literatures, Balagra Shatabhagasya Shatada Kalpitasya cha, the living entity is the size of the living entity, it's like a spark, small, very small, so it remains as a spark. One thousand portion Keshagra Shatabhagasya Shatada Kalpitasya cha. If the tip of the hair, it is divided into 100 parts, and it is further divided into 1000 parts, that is the size, that minute, the living entity is so minute that explanation will come further. And after merging in the Brahman also, the living entity remains there as a spark, individual spark. And one can again be, as it is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Aruhya Krichena Parampadam Tataha Patanti Adho. Even after merging in the Parampadam, attaining the supreme, the lotus feet, the Brahmajyoti, highest position, even if one attains to that Parampadam Tataha Patanti Adha Aruya Krichena, even if one merges in the Brahman existence, then still there is a chance that one can come back to this material world. And Swami Srila Prabhupada says that many living entities, they fall back again and they engages because they are already liberated, and as such they don't get suffering, but they engages in punya karma, because in the Brahma Jyoti they do not experience the Ananda feature. Sata, Chita and Ananda, they do not experience, because there is no interactions, because the living entity do not have a form there at the Brahman feature, and there is no interaction with others, so one fall back, because one cannot, out of unless one takes up to devotional service of the Supreme Lord, one cannot transcend himself further above Brahmajyoti and reach the Vaikuntha Lokas, or in the spiritual sky, other planets, Lokas in the spiritual sky. So one fall backs down in the material world. Aruya Krichena Yat Param param padam tataha patanti adoho. So wonderful verse, and so much, so many transcendental concepts in the purport Swami Srila Prabhupada explained, and one single verse which is, of course, now further Lord Krishna will speak. So many beautiful verses are there in line, but this very, very important, very famous, and lot of Krishna conscious, transcendental Vedic concept, Krishna conscious concepts in this single verse. Natva eva ham jatu nasham, natva neme janadipaha, na chaiva na bhavishyamaha, sarve vayam atha param. So Lord Shri Krishna has started Shri Bhagwan Vacha Sochananva Sochastam Pragyavadamscha Bhashase Gatasuna Gatasuncha Nanusochanti Pandita. So very first verse, Swami Srila Prabhupada, Lord Shri Krishna, he condemns the bodily conception of life, and then he speaks about eternity and our eternal existence, that everybody is existing eternally, and as individuals our individuality is never lost. Our individuality was existed, we existed as individuals in the past, and we are existing as individuals in the present, and we will continue to exist as individuals, either liberated or not liberated, in the future also. And Lord is the maintainer, Nitya Nityanam, in all the states of the living entity. So very beautiful verse, very wonderful verse, and wonderful spiritual concepts, transcendental concepts, and lot more to come. So we will take a few more verses in our next session, and we'll try to read and understand them through the beautiful, wonderful explanations, purports, and translations of Swami Srila Prabhupada. So with this I would like to stop here, and may Swami Srila Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Shri Krishna bless all of us. So Hare Krishna, Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya, Shroshishmaswanya, Sabai Charnar, Arvind Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. All glories to His Divine Grace, Abhay Charnar, Arvind Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Holy Name. All glories to the transcendental science of Bhagavad Gita. All glories to the instructions and Upadesha of Lord Shri Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.